Aiyiti, the land of mountains. Over 500 years ago, the island of Aiyiti was free. The indigenous Taino people took care of the land, grew cassava, corn, and beans, built beautiful houses shaded with palm leaves, and lived in peace. The island was wealthy with gold.
One day, a ship reached Ayiti that would change the land forever. Christopher Columbus arrived in Ayiti. The Taino people and the Taino leaders gave Christopher and the Spanish gifts of parrots, cotton, spears, and even a gold crown. But the Spanish white people did not share a generous spirit. Christopher put the crown on his head and decided to take over the Taino's land and call it Española, Little Spain. The Taino fought back, but Christopher and his Spanish army forced the land away from the Taino and made them enslaved.
150 years later, France fought the Spanish to take over the island of Aiyiti and make it a French colony, which means a piece of land that is stolen. Many French white people went to live in Aiyiti. The Spanish and the French became very rich, stealing gold from Aiyiti, but not rich enough for their liking. They started to steal Yoruba people and other Africans and take them to the island. The French made the African people enslaved too and forced them to grow sugar and coffee. The French got very, very rich, selling the sugar and the coffee that the African people grew on their farms called plantations.
The French didn't give the enslaved Africans any money to work for them, and because of all the sugar and coffee that the Africans grew, Ayiti was rich. Ayiti was worth more money than any other colony in the world. The French treated the enslaved Africans very violently, and because of this, most of the enslaved people only stayed alive for 2 or 3 years once the French brought them to Ayiti. But every year, the French brought more slaves, about 50,000 each year to Ayiti. In total, they brought almost 800,000 slaves. Soon, almost all of the people in Ayiti were African slaves. Some plantations had up to 200 enslaved people living on them. Life for the enslaved people was almost impossible. They were beaten, given almost no food. Some got 2 potatoes a day. They had no money and often were not allowed to go to school. Many enslaved Africans tried to run away. Some made it to their freedom. Some were caught and punished very badly with a whip or even with swords.
But the enslaved people were powerful. Yo te kembe, yo te fo. They spoke many languages, made music, had many cultures and religions from all over the continent of Africa. The enslaved people fought back against their master all the time, every day, in big and small ways, trying to get free. And then one day, about 200 years ago, a man named Dati Boukman decided to stand up for his black African people. Dati Boukman was a voodoo priest who was born and enslaved in Jamaica before he came to Ayiti. And one night, he asked many of his enslaved brothers, sisters, and siblings to come to a meeting at Bois Caiman in Ayiti. Together, the enslaved people planned how to get their freedom. At the meeting, 1,000 enslaved people decided to fight back against their masters. The fight was very violent, and some enslaved people did get free to join the other free people of color. During the fight, Dati Boukman died.
But there were many Africans who kept the fight for freedom going. One such man was Toussaint Louverture. He made the enslaved Africans who wanted freedom into a disciplined army. This army was willing to give up anything for their freedom, and together they chanted, "Live free or die!"
Vive libre ou bien périr.
The French tried to get control back by fighting against Toussaint Louverture, his army of enslaved Africans, but the black African people were too strong.
After 3 years of fighting, Toussaint and the enslaved Africans won their freedom. Many black Africans in Ayiti were no longer enslaved, but the black Africans in Ayiti were not finished fighting.
Ayiti still belonged to France, and France had a new ruler called Napoleon, who wanted to make the African people in Ayiti enslaved again. The Haitian black people wanted their own country, which is called independence, or indépendance. Even when the French white people captured Toussaint Louverture and put him in jail, the Africans kept fighting without him. They fought all the way up until the year 1804, when they finally beat Napoleon's army and got their own country.
It was a country ruled by people of African descent, and it became a place for enslaved people from all over to come for freedom. Nous libres, nous contents, n'a fêté, n'a célébré.
This changed the entire world, because enslaved Africans all around the world were watching, and they too wanted freedom. The free black people spread the message that none should be enslaved.
Pa gen moun ki dwe esklav.
We feel our bullets when they shoot 10 times, when they burning is the Haitian revolution. I am ready for war. They can't hurt me no more. We feel our bullets when they shoot 10 times, when they burning is the Haitian revolution. I am ready for war. They can't hurt me no more. Ready for the war, cause machetes and souls, living in these corners as we grow. Ready for the war.